So, one thing I want to start experimenting with a little bit, now that the office is marginally cleaner, see? Marginally cleaner. Is kind of filming some more of these projects as I go. So, let me get this thing over here. I should have been more prepared before I started, but who cares? Alright. So I recently took possession of a couple of older Macs, one of which is this beautiful PowerBook G4 Titanium, which I got a great deal on, but it had a few issues. Namely that the optical drive was kind of in rough shape, and optical drive in rough shape, and trying to figure out how I want to frame this. And then the sound wasn't working out of the speakers, but the sound worked fine out of the headphone jack. So I took it apart and poked around at the cable harness. I've also got an install going on this iMac over here, so pardon me. Poked around with the cable harness and reseated everything and couldn't get audio. So that was a frustrating experience. But I found this guy, which is the bottom half of a PowerBook G4 Titanium, and it had the same motherboard model number, and it looked to be in pretty good shape, you know, for a bottom half. It's obviously missing these screws, and I haven't taken a ton of care in realigning everything perfectly because I don't really care about some of these parts. But it was really cheap. It was like 40 bucks delivered, which I figured was a good gamble for an older machine, just for the parts. And quick detour, something I've discovered about this that I really like. I was baffled by, so the way these keyboards are held in the Wall Street, Lombard, and Pismo were the same way. There's these little tabs across the bottom, and then these two little tabs at the top. So the idea is you line up the tabs at the bottom, and then these tabs click in, and then between F5 and F6, there's this little guy, which is a screw that you can turn, and it pops out a little locking tab so it can hold it in more securely, which interestingly enough is not locked from the factory. I've never understood that. And then that's also the indicator for the num lock. But this has all these little metal things on the bottom, and I couldn't figure out what they were until I realized my screwdriver kept getting stuck on the chassis, and then I realized these are magnets, and they pull down on this, so they help pull the keyboard down flush, which is an issue I've noticed with some of the PowerBook G3s. So that's just an interesting little thing. Anyway, let me hit next a couple times on this install over here. So this board in here, turns out it's the 1 gigahertz model. So the PowerBook that I got, the original one that I was showing, is actually the 1 gigahertz, it was the 867, and then this is the 1 gigahertz model, which is nice because in addition to being a little bit faster, it also has 64 megs of VRAM versus 32. Oh, well, there's a frustrating discovery. I was really hoping to install it, and I just buttoned this thing up. iMac G4s are such a pain. And the Panther installer doesn't have whatever. I'm obviously just going to have to deal with this later. Bummer. It's not seeing the disk I just put in it. Anyway, so shut that thing down. I didn't want you to reboot. You know what, though? Just for the sake of doing it, I'm going to pop into open firmware here. We'll see if I can't pull the camera up a little bit. So you can actually see what I'm doing. Let's see. Eject CD. Whoa. Pull out my Panther disc. And then pop in Tiger. And then we'll see if System Profiler, oh come on, and Tiger sees anything. I'll leave that up while I'm talking because that's a little bit more interesting than what I'm doing alone. I'll kind of split it. I know that's weird. It's a bad shot, but it's what it is right now. Why didn't you boot? Hello. There we go. I forgot a hyphen. And yes, I am unironically using the puck mouse. I think I'm one of like 4 people in existence that really enjoys it. I would like a graphite one. I have 2 Bondi ones, one of whom needs a new micro switch. And I thought I had a indigo one, or is it gray? Doesn't matter. Can't find it. It's probably in the dregs of storage. So, I'm trying to remember how well I buttoned this back up. Anyway, the point is, this machine, this bottom half of a machine, before I even tore it more apart than it already had been, I plugged it in and turned it on just to see what would happen. And it chimed, which is always a good sign, because that tells me that not only does the motherboard work, but I don't want to lose these strips of Captain Tape. That's why I'm very unceremoniously sticking them onto the iMac here. So it chimed, which told me that not only did the motherboard work and the RAM that was in it was detected and everything, but the speakers worked, which, you know, is part of why I bought it. You know, and spare parts too, but, you know, unfortunately some of the parts that go, ooh, that's a big piece, go bad in the worst way, are like the hinges, and I do not have any more hinges. This came without hinges. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to reuse these pieces, but, and this stuff is so cheap. I have been using shitty vinyl electrical tape for years because I always thought Captain Tape was expensive. And granted, this is not name brand Captain Tape. But it was like $5 for, did I already put it up? Where did I put it? I don't know. $5 for these rolls that are like 100 feet by half an inch. So I bought 2 rolls. Because I often want to use it in situations like this. It's just like a temporary restraint or, you know, electrical insulator. I don't like using electrical tape to wrap wires. I've always thought that was a really bad idea, but people do it. I don't do it. I don't like to do it. Alright, so, yeah, so this machine got me a gigahertz board, working speakers, a working optical drive that's a super drive, no less, RAM, a 512 meg stick, and a 256 meg stick, and an airport card, plus a keyboard that's pretty clean. I guess also a bottom panel that's in pretty good shape. The top panel, there's really nothing to write home about. It's, you know, it's got a lot of paint missing there. The trackpad is super, super worn, super shiny. But, you know, some other bits and pieces that are good. So, and I'm not taking tremendous care of this thing because I'm really not too concerned about it anyway. So what I have unfortunately discovered is that, let's see, since this thing is booted up, I guess I should address it. So, moment of truth, ATA, and yep, sure enough, it only detects the optical drive. Bummer. Yeah, I put a 128 gig mSATA drive in here, on a mSATA to PATA adapter. Fudge. Alright, well, I'm just gonna have to deal with that later. I'm just gonna kick it into open firmware and then shut it down. Yeah. So, you know, after buttoning the, let's see, is it power off? shut down. There we go. Right. Now let me get that camera angle back down. You know, so after transplanting the board, I sadly discovered that it's still... let me actually tighten this in a little bit. Still just didn't play any audio out of the speakers. And that is obnoxious, because I was really hoping that it was a motherboard issue and just swapping out the motherboard would fix it, and it didn't. So now I'm thinking it's got to be the wiring harness. I don't even know how, because I don't think that doesn't make, but whatever. It's possible something is frayed. There's a bad connection somewhere. So my plan is to essentially do this in 2 parts, and that is, and I don't know if I'm going to do both 2 parts tonight. We'll see how I feel and how quickly this goes. Because to take the wiring harness out, you have to take the hinges off, because you have to take the display off, and that's just, oh, this guy's still connected. Okay, so that, I want to watch out for that connector, because that is, I believe, the audio connector. Should be careful with him. And then we get the power button right here. Then we have the auxiliary fan, which these are actually the old fans. I took over the new fan. And the main fan is kind of semi-permanently attached to the board, so I don't want to mess with that too much. Anyway, so there's a PowerBook G4 titanium logic board. It's, you know, a nice little compact system. I love how massive the bridge thing is here. So we've got that guy. We have the Radeon Mobility 9000 GPU with 2 16 meg chips, and then on the 1 gigahertz model, these pads are populated with 2 more 16 meg chips for 64 megs total. Of course, there's our G4, our 7450. This one's running at 867 megahertz. It's got a meg of L3 cache. That's that chip there and there. They're 512K. This one might be 512K L3. No, I think this one's a full meg. You know, 2 PC133 RAM slots. Interestingly, that on the one side of the board, there's the card bus connector, which is this guy down here. And then on the other side, attached to the board but mounted on the top, is the airport connector. And they, of course, both use card bus. I actually have an airport card. Where did I put it? I'm putting stuff in weird places. Doesn't matter. And then looks like we have some ROM that might be where open firmware is stored. A bunch of power management stuff going on over here. Looks like, yeah, because that, no, there's where the battery comes in. Doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. Big transceiver for the Ethernet. Those are so chunky back then. It's so funny. Broadcom chip for Ethernet. Yeah, a little Texas Instruments controller. Some other fun stuff. Just nice little board. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not talking about the board right now. Right now, we are talking about this cable that snakes on down through here. So, the way it looks is speaker up here, speaker right here, and this cable here. So something connects, there's a little connector, I'm not sure how much you can see. So there's this little connector right here. This little I'm going to move this camera so I can actually see the screen, because I have no idea what my potential viewers are seeing. And I don't really love this tripod. I've never loved this tripod, but it's convenient, so. Alright, so I brought it down a little bit. And I think I'm going to position it a little bit more kind of traditionally in front of me. And then that's marginally better. I don't know. Let's zoom in just a touch. So here we have a speaker connector that is like glued down, and then that's just plugged in. And then further over, we have a similar setup with a connector there, but it's not glued down. So the question is getting this out. So I can see, I think this has like a speaker, like a 2.1 with a sub setup. That's what it kind of feels like. Yeah. I hope this stuff is not formed into this top case, because I do not think I'm going to be able, looking at the hinges there, how they form into the back. I'm not sure. I don't think this angle is a whole lot better. Maybe if I move it further back, bring it up a little. I mean, I see some screws down in here. I think this heat pipe assembly can come out. Let's see, let me take off, there's a couple little things I can take out. Like this modem filter board. Definitely do not need it. It's that's one of the few weird things I do with a lot of old Macs, is take out the modem, but I just know I'm never going to use it. On old Macs I might leave it, but something like this is too new. I'll use Ethernet or Wi-Fi. I think, let me see, I think I have a manual over here. Of course, 24% remaining on the laptop. That's okay. Downloads. I could swear I had downloaded it. I guess I can just grab it again. Thankfully, the service manuals for these are really easy to come by. Apple. You want the PowerBook G4 1 gig 867. You want to save it. Oh, I'd saved the other one. Alright, documents. Load it up. Don't need the table of contents. Don't need the table of contents. There we go. Change the view to get dual pages. Alright, and then now we can get this guy into frame so you can follow along. And scroll, scroll, scroll. Hard drive, we're past that. Modem, we're past that. Way down towards the bottom. Okay, we've gotten the motherboard out. Yep, we've cleaned off the thermal paste. Yep, we're not worried about the fan. PC card cage. Alright, let's go ahead and get that. So we need T8, which I have right here. And yeah, sure enough, we want to take out. Is that already out? Oh, because we have to take off that standoff. That's why it's saying we need a hex socket. That's weird. So and then on either side of that, so that one, I'm just going to take this guy out. sort of hinges out. It's got that cool button on it though. Okay, so card cage out. Let's just toss it to the side. Oh man. So rib frame and heat exchanger. So we got the card cage, bottom case, hard drive, optical drive, logic board, card cage, secondary fan. So flip it back over. Looks like we also pulled out the battery connector and another hex nut that must have just been rattling loose. That's okay. Oh, maybe that was on the other side of that screw. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so sure enough, first thing is take out, well, not first thing, but an early thing is take out the hinges. So take off those two screws, they're already out. That screw, that's already out. These two screws, those are already out. Back screws, those are already out. The those little metal tabs that fit right here, they're like little locking plates. Those actually fell out when I was taking it apart the first time. Yeah, this thing is really loose. It might just pop out on its own. Yeah, don't damage the display cable. Okay, disconnect the audio cable at each end of the heat exchanger. So there's that one. And then that one. Okay. Good gravy. I usually enjoy. Okay, well, I don't know how long this has been not recording for. Apparently I stopped it at some point. Because I'm not sure where it stopped, I'll recap a little bit. I took out the magnesium frame. I think it's magnesium anyway. Marco has joined us. He's very helpful. I got out the heat exchanger, and that has one of the wires for... Yeah, you can eat that Kapton tape. I'm not going to reuse it. Yeah, it's gross, isn't it? It's yucky. That has the pair, the signal ground pair for the right hand speaker here. And then the connector here, this guy, that goes to the motherboard, has 3 pairs, which are left, right, and microphone. And I realized, kind of late in the game, that this guy... It's kind of hard to see. That's the microphone. And I was just sort of assuming that the microphone was in the lid like a modern laptop that has a built-in webcam. And that wasn't a thing in 2003 when this was built. So, the annoying thing is that these speakers are definitely glued in place. I have a little... boho, I don't know how you say that, little plastic scraper pry bar thing. I can take a squidge at that, but I mean, oof. Oh gosh, yucky. So I mean, we've got, you know, the upper is You know, we've got a, gosh, this thing's focus. You know, a little driver speaker up here at the top, and then a whole bunch of glue, and all the dots. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this. All these dots are actually where dust went through the grill and stuck to the adhesive. So that's like, you know, 17-year-old dust stuck to glue, which is such a stupid design, but whatever. And then down here, of course, that's the microphone. And then the question is, why on my other system am I not getting any sound? I don't get it. I mean, this seems like such a simple component that I just dropped on the floor. Such a simple component, right? I mean, we have literally a connector with 6 wires going into it, 3 grounds, 3 signals, you know, 1 to the microphone, 1 to left, 1 to right. Oh, that's, you know what I should do? I should test the microphone on the TiBook and see if that works. Yeah. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. You'll zoom us back out, and then I'm gonna scoot the camera back a little ways and reframe a little bit. We still gotta have Marco in the center. Okay, so this guy I want to keep. Set that over with a keep pile. Got this horrible TiBook graveyard over here. Okay, move the lettuce. We need to plug him in. He's very low. Pull out happy TiBook. Pull up some more of this Captain tape. Get some more parts in the tray here. Move the tray over. And it's very convenient because I was actually just playing around with some other speaker stuff, audio stuff. So I very conveniently have a pair of speakers right here. So let's plug those bad boys in. I'm just going to kind of unceremoniously set them here, but turn them up a little bit. And buzz, buzz, buzz. I'll turn it up a little bit loud. Into the good old headphone jack. None of this TRRS stuff. Only stereo, please. And then that battery does have some charge, but I don't really trust it, so I'm gonna pull out the charger here. Figure out which one of these is easier to get to. Seems like it's this one. Whoa. And then we will set that there. Unplug whatever that is. Plug that in. I've got this outlet up here just for such occasions. And plug this guy in. Running it on a towel, of course, is not really best practices, but whatever. Marco's not really a best practice kind of cat. He doesn't roll that way. He's too cool for school. Crack it open. And, sorry Marco, gotta leave you in frame. Power button. Chime on the speakers. Of course, that was not out of these little guys. And then give it a second to get humming. This thing takes a while to come up. It's interesting. The screen is kind of dusty. I've got a duster over here somewhere. Look at how disapproving this cat is over here. Marco. Psst, psst. Hey, buddy. Let's fire up Crystal Caliburn. Oh, here it is, because it has such awesome sound. Yeah, change it to 8-bit color. Yeah. See if I can. I think it's Z. No, it's shifts. What? Why aren't you? Maybe I have to actually start the game. Okay. Insert coin. Insert coin because I'm a high roller. New game. Okay, here we go. So it's Z. We had this on our 6100, and my sister and I used to play this all the time. This is my favorite ever computer pinball. It's a little bit weird playing it so little. No! It's okay, I've got one more ball. Come on. Oh, darn it. No! Yeah, so I'm bad at pinball. Anyway, all that matters here is that, obviously, audio on this works just fine. Right. That's really all that matters. Close all this junk. I need to clean up my desktop. Oh, it's so bad. And if we go to sound and okay, so we go to input, built-in mic, check signal level, and then tap. That looks like. Let me zoom in so you can, I don't know how well you can see it. But when I go tap, I would expect that to be peaking a lot higher. I can't change the gain though, that's interesting. Anyway, so let's see. Speakers. You know what's interesting is you can do a speaker test on this. So I can do, and if I turn the volume down, so that channel works. That channel works. Anyway, so it works, whatever. The audio output obviously works. So let's unplug. Let me zoom this back out. Get our assistant back in the frame here. He's very important. And then let's unplug our speakers. And then hit our noises. Not hearing anything. You should be hearing something every time we select one of those. Nothing. So let's go back to this. Oh, jeez. Let's quit that. And then let's fire up everyone's favorite audio recording software, Simple Text. And look, as I'm talking, you can see the little microphone icon is just going bananas. So I'm going to record myself. This is a test of me recording myself on the TiBook's internal microphone. Blah, blah, blah. And then we hit stop, and then we hit play. This is a test of me recording myself on the TiBook's internal microphone. Blah, blah, blah. So the microphone obviously works fine. Just why don't the speakers work? That's so weird. So, 2 motherboards. The mic works. Speakers don't work on either. I wonder, let's go back to sound. I think I already tested this, but I'm going to test it again. Go to speakers. Oh, whoops, that's using, let's unplug it. And notice the dialogue changes because now it knows you're using the built-in. Though, sorry, that was my hand on the mic cable, on the speaker cable. It uses the like iMac G3 or maybe eMac speaker grills for left and right. So let's start test. Nothing out of left, nothing out of right, nothing out of left, nothing out of right. And if I change the volumes, that's obviously going to be the same. Why did I start it? There's nothing. I don't know. I don't really want to be resigned to this, but I think for right now, maybe I have to be. I have no clue. I mean, just looking at this piece, right? Let me bring the camera back down here. God, this white balance is so weird. It is not this yellow in here, I promise. You know, so looking at this, I mean, it's so simple. It's these wires, you know, we have this pair. This connector is the one that runs off to this guy, to the right-hand speaker. Wait a second. Oh, that's why. Okay, duh, the microphone's over here. So when I was tapping, whatever. Yeah, so that pair runs off to that speaker. And this just has one pair go down to the mic. The mic is fine. And then another pair. Why are both speakers in this out? I don't understand. Okay, well, I'm going to stop recording on this one. I'm going to turn this thing off and flip it over and take the bottom case off and poke around underneath it and see if we can't figure out something that makes sense. Alright, so I think it zoomed in too close. That might just be too close in general. Hopefully that's clear. So that is the audio connector right there. And you know, like I said, this board chimed in the other system. And like that connector, it looks perfectly fine. Man, I'm really... Let me get this... Gonna back up here. You know, so... I mean, all these pins look perfectly fine. Do I want to pull this whole board out? So I'm torn. On the one hand, I really want to fix this. But on the other hand, I don't know. There's a limit. And just these systems, the main thing is just taking off the hinges. Just makes me nervous. There's so many, like the process of getting out this magnesium frame was such a bear. I just don't really want to do it again, especially if I have to put it back. I don't know why are they both out? Because I don't think, let me turn this thing back around here so we can look at the other side. So the secondary fan is, so it's going from top down. We got the DCN board, the secondary fan and its heat pipe, the inverter control cable. This void right here is where the modem would have sat. And then underneath it, these two kind of black things are, if I pull the other board out, you can sort of see where it's set. It's got this little bit of tape on it. Let me get this off. So this is how they sit. They're the same piece. So this is the the other speaker with its kind of wacky, like, echo chamber design to, I guess, make it sound better, which is cool. Big, resonant chamber. And it is totally just slapped down and glued in place. This is definitely intended to be a single piece. So, I could try and find a new top piece. I mean, part number's got to be on it somewhere. I could try. Trying a new top piece. What's odd to me is that, I'm gonna pop this one off because whatever. Oh, did it crack? No, it's coming up. What's odd to me, or rather, yeah, it's odd that both of them are out, and I'm never going to use this top case because of the damage that's on it, between the trackpad being so glossy and lots of chip paint on it. I would just imagine that one or the other channel would go out. It seems so weird that both have failed. So here is the right-hand speaker. Pop that over there. So, I mean, I could, because they're not damaged. They both survived being peeled off pretty well. I can, sorry, God, I'm so bad at framing. I guess these would be like this in the system. I can clean off this double-sided tape, and I can replace it, and I can stick them back down. But I mean, I don't know what the issue is. I really don't. What I think that the connector for the right-hand speaker, so this one, because this sits here, so its connector is it's right underneath this DC board. So what I can do is fairly easily, anyway, is pop out the DC board and T6. Pop out the DC board, see if I can disconnect it, and see what happens when it's disconnected. And maybe I'll just get audio on the one side. I don't know. I don't like the way this, you kind of have to wiggle this thing out of here to get it out. The way the secondary fan is held in, it's just Apple being Apple, I guess. And this is just what the manual says. They're like, yeah, just take out the screws and then wiggle it till it comes out. Right, so I was wrong. It's under the secondary fan. Alright, so I have to do a little bit more excavation. Pop off the inverter controller cable, which that's something I'm glad I have two of. And this fan. Oh, I don't know if I can get that out without taking out the board, and I really don't feel like taking out the board because I've re-thermal pasted this poor thing like 5 times already doing this crap. Yeah, that's not happening. But I mean, it's kind of surprised I can't even see it. Where's my phone? Let me see if I can make this angle a little bit more logical for everybody else. Alright, so Yeah. Oh, there it is. It's directly underneath that fan. Fudge. Fudge, fudge, fudge. Well, maybe the other option is to remove the cable from this end, but I know, you know, from both having done it a zillion times and just, you know, this thing, again, the speaker sits right here. And so this cable wraps up like this, and then this guy is sitting right there for the cable to plug into. Ah, man. I don't know, there's just something squirrely going on that both channels are out. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, this thing's always going to be a desk warrior. So if I need to use speakers to get audio, that's not the end of the world. I don't like systems that don't work the way they should. Especially when they're in such good physical condition like this one is. But,